It began on the Imperial Archive Moon, a silent world of endless metal towers and cold glowing halls where the Empire stored every piece of history they ever collected, every ship ever built, every battle ever fought, every loss, every victory, every document, every blueprint, every star map, and every classified secret that shaped the galaxy. And the belief across thousands of worlds was simple. Nothing was ever forgotten there. Nothing was ever misplaced. Nothing was ever lost. The Archive Moon was perfection, and in the Empire's proud eyes, perfection could not be broken. But on one quiet night, under the dim blue lights of the lower records chamber, an apprentice archivist named Ralix sat alone at his scanning console, yawning as he reviewed old Star Sector archives, checking for corrupt data points. Boring work nobody cared about, until something flickered on his screen so fast he first thought it was a glitch. But it wasn't. The image returned clearer, sharper, and when Ralix leaned closer, his breath froze in his throat. A ship was drifting through an unmonitored sector far beyond the Empire's border. A ship that was massive, dark, silent, human, and it wasn't in any records. Not a single archive mentioned it. Not a single launch log matched it. Not a single blueprint existed for it. No scanned signature. No crew files. No age. No registry. The ship was simply there, as if appearing out of nothing. Ralix felt cold sweat form on his neck. He tried pinging the vessel. No response. He tried accessing database matches. Nothing. He tried searching pre-war human records. Empty. The screen pulsed once, then stabilized, showing the enormous ship drifting like a shadow against a dead star. Ralix called his supervisor, voice shaking, and together they scanned again. The reading was real. The ship existed. Yet officially, it did not. That was the first crack in the archive's perfection. Then the panic began. High-ranking archivists ran into the chamber, whispering in frightened tones, elders tapping old codes, commanders contacting the Imperial Council through encrypted lines. Because if a ship existed outside the archive, it meant the Empire did not know everything, and for a species that worshipped information, a secret that big felt like a knife pressed against their throat. Alarms rose slowly across the Archive Moon, not loud sirens, but soft tones, warning tones, the kind used only when something impossible was detected. Elders gathered around Ralix's console. They zoomed in on the mysterious vessel. They examined its dark hull, marked with old Terran symbols none of them had seen in more than 2 centuries. One elder whispered a word in a trembling voice, a word that had slept in fear for generations. Terran. The room froze. That word alone carried weight heavier than gravity. Humanity had disappeared from major galactic affairs more than 150 years ago, retreating into silence after a long era of disasters and betrayals. The Empire believed humans were broken, dying, scattered, weak. That was the story they taught in schools. But this ship, this massive, unknown, unrecorded human ship, felt like a ghost returning to life. Before anyone could decide what to do, the ship moved. Slowly at first. Then with undeniable purpose. Ralix stared in disbelief as the vessel shifted its course and accelerated toward a region of space marked red on every Imperial map. The battle line where an enemy fleet of more than 400 warships was gathering to launch a full-scale attack on the Empire. The elders did not breathe. The commanders did not speak. Ralix could only whisper, "Why is it going there?" But no one knew. The mysterious human ship glided like a giant predator through the dark, its engines silent, its hull absorbing every scanner pulse thrown at it. It passed through old debris fields without leaving a trail. It ignored every gravitational landmark. It simply moved straight toward the enemy fleet, alone. In the Empire's war chamber far above the archive, the High Emperor stood in front of a massive projection as the ship approached the battle zone. Officers scrambled around him, shouting conflicting reports. It's human. It's ancient. It's not in the records. It's a threat. It's impossible. The Emperor did not speak. He simply watched. The screen showed the human ship entering the heart of enemy territory, dwarfed by massive cruisers and destroyers surrounding it like wolves circling a lone animal. And then, without warning, every Imperial screen on the Archive Moon flickered, glitched, warped, and went black. A terrifying silence filled every hall across the archive as the screens stayed dark, the data streams frozen, the signals cut, the scanners blinded. Ralix's heart pounded in his chest. He tapped the controls. Nothing responded. The elders tried ancient overrides. Nothing worked. Across the Empire's communication network, confusion spread like wildfire. We've lost visuals. We've lost the feed. We've lost the entire sector. What happened? No one could answer. The archive moon never lost signal. Not once. Not ever. The elders stared at each other with hollow eyes, because they had seen this phenomenon once before, deep in ancient human records buried in sealed vaults. An event described only as oblivion interference. A blackout caused by something only humans could build. Ralix felt a cold, suffocating fear crawl up his spine. What happened to the ship? He whispered. No one knew. Then the lights flickered. One by one, the screens powered back on, weakly, slowly, like dying stars struggling to shine. The first image returned on Ralix's console, blurry at first, then sharp enough to break the soul of every person watching. The entire enemy fleet, more than 400 warships, was gone. Not destroyed. Not burning. Not exploding. Gone. The space where the fleet once stood was empty, silent, dead. Not a single piece of debris. Not a spark of fire. Not a trace of life. Just empty darkness stretching endlessly, as if the ships had been erased from existence. The only thing left in the center of the black void was the human ship. Still silent. Still massive. Still unrecorded. Still unknown. And still drifting forward as if nothing had happened. Across the archive moon, no one spoke. No one breathed. No one understood. A full enemy armada, an entire fleet that threatened the Empire, had vanished in seconds. And the mysterious human ship was untouched. Calm. Cold. Quiet. Waiting. Ralix's hands shook as he whispered, "What kind of human ship is this?" An elder answered with a trembling voice, something the galaxy should have left alone. In the war chamber, the Emperor felt a chill deeper than fear. A chill that came from realizing the Empire had misjudged humanity for generations. Humans were not broken. Humans were not dying. Humans were not gone. They were watching. And now, something powerful beyond imagination had awakened. The archive moon's alarms changed tone, a deeper, heavier sound, the kind reserved for galaxy-scale threats. Officers panicked. Commanders shouted. Elders prayed. And Ralix watched as the screen zoomed closer to the human ship, revealing strange glowing symbols along the hull. Symbols no archive had ever seen. Old Terran runes. Forgotten codes. A message written in a language older than the Empire itself. And just as Ralix leaned in, the ship's front lights flickered. It turned. Slowly. Deliberately. As if it sensed it was being watched. As if it knew the Empire was looking at it. As if it was alive. Ralix's heart felt like it stopped beating. Because for the first time, the ship faced the Empire. The elders stepped back in terror. The room vibrated. And then, the screen went black again. When the screens went black for the second time, the archive moon fell into a silence so deep that even the humming of machines sounded afraid. As if the entire moon itself understood something ancient and dangerous had been awakened, something far beyond the Empire's control. Officers rushed through the metal corridors, their boots echoing like distant thunder, while elders whispered old Terran myths that had not been spoken aloud for more than a century. Ralix stood frozen at his console, staring at his own reflection in the dark screen, his heart pounding so hard he felt it shaking his ribs. He wondered if the human ship had done something to the archive or if the void itself was rejecting their attempt to observe it. Around him, supervisors shouted orders that made no sense, ordering system reboots and calling for emergency lockdowns, but the entire archive moon felt like it was holding its breath. Suddenly, the monitors flickered back on, but not with feed from the battlefield. No, instead a strange static filled the screens, swirling like a black storm trapped behind glass, and for a moment Ralix thought he saw shapes moving inside the static, shapes like shadows of ships that no longer existed. Then the storm cleared, and the image sharpened into something far more terrifying. The human ship was no longer drifting. It had turned fully toward the Imperial border, its massive dark hull glowing faintly with some unknown energy, as if waking up slowly from a deep, dangerous sleep. Elders gasped. Ralix stepped back without meaning to. The ship's hull markings, the old Terran runes, were now brighter, alive, pulsing in slow rhythm like a heartbeat, and each pulse seemed to vibrate through the archive moon systems, causing lights to flicker and consoles to shake. It wasn't attacking. It wasn't sending signals. It was simply existing, and its existence alone was enough to break the Empire's confidence. In the war chamber, the High Emperor slammed his fist on the table, demanding answers, but his voice carried fear, not authority. "What is that ship?" he shouted. "How can a vessel appear without records?" No one answered. They couldn't. The Empire had always believed information was power, and yet here was a human ship that existed outside every map, every database, every law of logic, and the universe suddenly felt bigger, darker, and far more dangerous. Imperial scientists raced to decode the glowing runes but found only fragments. References to an ancient Terran project classified even before humanity went silent. Something called Protocol O, but the rest of the word was missing, lost in corrupted human archives. Meanwhile, the enemy armada that had vanished moments ago still showed no trace. Not a single particle, not a heat signature, not a dead beacon. 400 warships simply removed from existence, as if plucked out of reality by unseen hands. Ralix felt dizzy. His mind replayed the moment the feed went dark, wondering if the human ship had done it, or if something even greater was at work. Then a sudden alarm blared across the archive, an alarm so rare, so feared, that even the highest-ranking officers froze in horror. It was the outer gate warning, triggered only when a massive unknown object crossed the Empire's border. Ralix's screen changed again, and his blood turned cold. The mysterious human ship had crossed into Imperial space. Not fast, not aggressive, just steady, unstoppable movement. "Why is it coming here?" someone whispered. A supervisor choked out the answer, "Because it knows we're watching." The elders trembled, gripping their robes. "It felt the scan," one murmured. "It knows the Empire saw it." Ralix's voice barely escaped his lips. "Is it coming to attack us?" No one replied. They didn't know. But deep inside, everyone felt the same truth. This ship didn't need to attack to destroy. Its presence alone erased fleets. Its silence crippled systems. Its unknown technology shut down everything it touched. And now, it was coming straight toward the Empire. Across the archive moon, soldiers sprinted to battle stations, though they all knew their weapons were meaningless. Civilians were locked in shelter halls. The Emperor sent emergency commands to the entire Imperial Navy, summoning warships from dozens of sectors. But even as fleets scrambled to move, the mysterious human vessel drifted forward effortlessly, slipping through space as if gravity itself obeyed it. The Empire had spent hundreds of years believing humans were weak, soft, irrelevant. But now, as this impossible ship glided toward them with silent power, the truth settled into every heart with crushing weight. The Empire had not been watching humanity, humanity had been watching them. And now the watchers were no longer silent. The runes on the ship glowed brighter. The lights across the archive moon dimmed. And Ralix whispered the words everyone feared. "This isn't a ship. This is a warning." Across the Empire, fear traveled faster than any ship as news spread that the mysterious human vessel had crossed the Imperial border, and entire worlds felt the same cold pressure in their chests. A strange tightness like the air itself was warning them to stay quiet, to stay still, to not draw the attention of whatever was coming. In military bases, seasoned officers who had fought 100 battles stood frozen in front of their screens, unable to understand how a ship that made no sound, carried no heat signature, and released no known energy could simply phase through the border shields as if they were made of dust. In the archive moon, Ralix watched in terror as the massive human ship drifted closer on his screen, its runes glowing brighter with each passing second, those symbols pulsing like ancient heartbeat rhythms that seemed to echo inside his own chest, making him feel small, fragile, and painfully aware of how little the Empire understood. Commanders barked orders that felt empty, pointless, as they demanded fleet formations and weapon charges. But everyone in the room knew deep inside that nothing they had would matter if this ship wanted them gone. After all, it had erased 400 enemy warships without breaking a sweat. The Emperor sent distress calls to every Imperial district, summoning ships, summoning soldiers, summoning courage that no longer existed. Even the strongest Imperial fleets felt like children holding sticks against a storm they couldn't see. Yet the human ship did not increase speed, did not attack, did not even turn its weapons, if it had weapons at all. It simply continued forward with calm, terrifying purpose, like something fulfilling a mission written centuries ago. The Imperial Navy scrambled to intercept it, deploying dozens of cruisers, battleships, and carriers into formation, creating a massive wall of metal and firepower stretching across the stars. Ralix watched them on the screen, rows of Imperial warships glowing with charged cannons and shields at maximum power, every ship captain shouting nervously into comms, trying to hide the shaking in their voices. Identify yourself. This is Imperial space. Stop immediately. Unknown vessel. Respond. But there was no response. The human ship drifted closer, unbothered, unafraid, unstoppable. When it finally reached visual range, something strange happened. Every Imperial ship lost gravity for a split second. Lights flickered, and engines coughed like dying lungs, making entire crews fall to the floor in confusion and fear. For a brief moment, every Imperial soldier felt weightless, helpless, like the universe had been turned upside down. Then everything stabilized. Officers gasped for breath. Pilots clutched their controls with white knuckles. Commanders stared at their screens in disbelief, whispering, "What? What is that thing?" Ralix felt the same terror. The ship wasn't hostile. It wasn't violent. It wasn't even communicating. It just existed, and its existence alone overpowered the Empire's mightiest defenses. In the Emperor's private chamber, the oldest elder was finally summoned, a frail being who walked slowly with a cane carved from the bones of a star beast. When he saw the ship on the projection, his face turned white. "I know that design," he whispered. "This is impossible. This should never exist." The Emperor grabbed him by the shoulders. "What is it? What kind of human weapon is this?" The elder shook his head painfully. "Not a weapon. A judge." Ralix repeated the word under his breath. "Judge." But before anyone could demand answers, the human ship slowed, stopping just outside firing range of the Imperial fleet, and all at once, every Imperial ship received the same freezing message. A soft tremor of energy pulsing through their consoles, forming words that appeared in a dead language no alien had seen in centuries. "Protocol Vigil is active. Stand by." Officers stared in shock. The runes on the ship glowed in sync with the message. The elder fell to his knees, trembling. Protocol Vigil, the old Terran safeguard. They made it before they vanished, to watch the galaxy, to defend against threats. Ralix's eyes widened. But if it's a safeguard, why did it erase the enemy fleet? The elder looked up with tears in his eyes. Because the ship does not protect the Empire. It does not protect any government. It does not protect borders or flags. It protects balance. Anything that threatens that balance is removed. Ralix felt his legs weaken. Meaning, the elder finished with shaking lips. Meaning if the Empire is judged a threat, it will erase us too. And at that exact moment, the human ship turned its massive dark hull toward the Imperial fleet, and all across the Empire, from the Lord Governors to the lowest workers, hearts stopped. Because in that quiet turn, in that slow, deliberate movement, the galaxy understood one thing. The ship was no longer watching the enemy. It was watching them. The moment the human ship turned its dark, impossible hull toward the Imperial fleet, a wave of fear swept across every command bridge, every outpost, and every city connected to the Imperial network, as if the entire Empire suddenly felt the cold stare of something too ancient and too powerful to defy. Dozens of Imperial ships aimed their weapons, hands trembling on controls, captains shouting orders they didn't believe in, voices cracking as they tried to convince themselves they still had power. But deep inside, every soldier, every officer, every admiral knew a terrible truth. This was not a battle they could win, not with strategy, not with numbers, not with any weapon they possessed. Ralix watched from the archive moon as the mysterious human vessel drifted closer, its glowing runes pulsing slowly like calm breaths from a sleeping giant that could wake at any moment and erase the stars themselves. Imperial scientists screamed into comms, urging the fleet not to fire, begging them to stand down, warning them that the ship operated under rules the Empire did not understand. But some commanders were too proud, too fearful, too desperate, and pride mixed with panic is the most dangerous weapon of all. One Imperial cruiser fired a warning shot, a single pulse of energy, small, weak, almost useless, but the moment the shot left the cannon, the galaxy changed. The human ship responded without moving, without flashing, without sound. A soft ripple of distortion spread from its hull like a quiet sigh, and the pulse fired by the cruiser dissolved into dust before it even reached halfway. The entire Imperial fleet watched in frozen terror as the ripple reached their ships. It didn't destroy them. It didn't explode. It didn't burn. It simply touched their systems, and everything died. Engines shut off. Shields vanished. Weapons powered down. Gravity flickered. Life support paused for half a heartbeat. Entire cruisers drifted like toys left to float in a cosmic ocean. In the war chamber, the Emperor clutched the rails of his throne, his face pale with terror as he whispered, "It disarmed our entire fleet with a breath." The elder beside him closed his shaking eyes. Protocol Vigil does not fight. It judges. Ralix stared at the screen, tears forming without him knowing why, because something about the ship's silence felt heavier than any explosion. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't angry. It wasn't proud. It was disappointed. And that disappointment hurt more than destruction. The human vessel hovered silently in front of the disabled Imperial fleet, runes glowing with steady light, and the longer it watched, the more everyone felt the same thing settling in their hearts. A sense of being seen, not as an empire, not as a government, but as a species that had failed some ancient test. On the Imperial destroyer Lion's Crown, the captain broke down on the command bridge, whispering, "We treated the humans like they were weak, and all this time they were waiting." In the archive moon, Ralix felt small, like a child staring at a storm too big to understand, and he whispered to himself, "Why didn't humanity tell us they had this?" The elder answered with a voice full of sorrow, "Because humanity never wanted war. They wanted to disappear so the galaxy would forget their pain. But they left guardians behind, silent watchers, in case history repeated itself." And now history had repeated itself. The Empire had grown arrogant, violent, destructive, just like the old enemies humanity fought centuries ago. The human ship didn't move closer. Instead, a dim white light formed around its hull, spreading gently across the battlefield like a curtain of fog. The Imperial Navy trembled. Every ship captain shouted for retreat, but their engines were dead. There was nowhere to run. The light grew brighter, surrounding the entire Imperial formation, and Ralix felt his chest tighten as if the air became heavier. What was this? A weapon? A warning? A final judgment? The war chamber's projectors glowed weakly as the Emperor watched the light swallow his fleets, his voice barely a whisper. "Is it going to erase us too?" The elder shook his head slowly. "If it wanted you erased, you would already be gone." Ralix felt breath leave his lungs in a shaky exhale. Mercy. Mercy from something powerful enough to destroy existence. But the light did not fade. It spread further, touching more ships, touching space itself, until even the stars looked dim behind it. Then a single line of text appeared across every Imperial screen, written in ancient Terran code so old that even the database struggled to translate it. "Threat evaluation in progress. Remain still." The Empire froze. The universe felt frozen. And Ralix understood the horrifying truth. This ship wasn't finished while it was judging them. The white light surrounding the Imperial fleet grew thicker and brighter, wrapping every ship like a silent cocoon of judgment, and in that frightening glow the universe felt painfully small, as if every star, every moon, every life was being watched by something far older than the Empire itself. On the command bridges of hundreds of powerless ships, officers clung to their seats with shaking hands, their eyes wide with terror as their screens flashed unreadable symbols, ancient human codes dancing across consoles that had never seen such data in their existence. Ralix watched from the archive moon, breath trembling, as the human vessel hovered motionless, its majestic dark hull glowing with slow pulses that felt like a heartbeat, each pulse sending a wave of energy across the battlefield that made every Imperial officer collapse into a heavy silence. The runes carved into the human ship's metal now glowed a deep gold, as if the vessel was awakening layer by layer, revealing pieces of itself the galaxy had never been meant to witness. The Elder on the war chamber platform stared at the image with hollow eyes, whispering, "It is searching, searching for guilt." The Emperor's voice cracked. "Guilt for what? We fought our wars like any empire." But the Elder shook his head slowly, painfully. "No, it is not judging the war. It is judging the pattern. The Empire destroys too much, takes too much, threatens too much. This ship sees beyond events. It sees intention." And in that one moment, the Emperor felt truly naked, stripped of titles, stripped of rank, stripped of every lie he told himself. The light surrounding the Imperial fleet deepened, shifting from white to a soft, heavy blue, and then to a deep crimson red, like the sky before a storm. Captains across the fleet began to scream into disabled radios, begging the ship to stop, begging for mercy, begging in voices that had once commanded entire armadas but now broke like frightened children. Ralix felt tears sting his eyes. For the first time in his life, he understood fear not as a moment but as a living thing crawling into every corner of the soul. The mysterious human vessel hummed with a low sound, not a weapon charging, not an engine warming, but a quiet vibration that felt like a sigh from something ancient and heartbroken. Without warning, every Imperial ship began to shake gently, as if caught in a powerful gravitational tide. Soldiers fell to their knees. Light panels cracked. Metal groaned like it was begging for forgiveness. And then, in slow, painful detail, every Imperial officer saw the truth on their screens. The human ship was scanning their memories. Not their machines. Not their weapons. Their minds. Images flashed across consoles. A timeline of Imperial conquest, broken worlds, fallen species, punished colonies, all shown as silent echoes of their own cruelty. Ralix covered his mouth in shock as he saw those images projected across the archive ceiling, each one a mirror of the Empire's darkest sins. The Emperor fell to his knees, trembling, whispering, "Please, please stop." But the ship did not stop. Its judgment was not finished. Suddenly the light changed again, turning into a deep, sorrowful violet, the color that Terran legends once described as the moment before loss. The Elder collapsed into his chair. "It knows," he whispered. "It knows the Empire betrayed humanity long ago. It knows the Empire hunted their colonies after they went silent. It knows everything." Ralix's heart cracked. But that was centuries ago. The Elder's eyes filled with tears. Humans do not forget betrayal. They bury it. And their machines bury it deeper. The human vessel's runes flared in brilliant light, bright enough to blind sensors across multiple star systems, and every Imperial soldier felt a single emotion flooding their minds, disappointment so deep it felt like drowning. Then the final message appeared. Across every Imperial ship. Across every planet linked to the Imperial network. Across the archive moon. Across the Emperor's throne itself. Just 4 simple words written in cold Terran code as the human ship began charging its unknown power. A thick silence settled over the Imperial fleet, so heavy, so suffocating, that even breathing felt like a sin. Every officer, every soldier, every commander felt their bodies freeze as the runes on the mysterious vessel glowed brighter and brighter, shifting from deep violet into a blinding silver that made entire bridges bathe in light. Ralix stared at the screen from the archive moon, his heart pounding so fast it hurt, because the energy building inside that ancient Terran ship was unlike anything he had ever studied or seen in the Empire's history. It didn't look like a weapon charging. It looked like the universe itself being pulled inward, like space was bending around the vessel's will. The Imperial fleet, still powerless and drifting like helpless leaves in a violent river, could only watch as the human ship's hull expanded with rings of swirling light, each ring rippling outward like a silent scream. On the war chamber platform, the Emperor clawed at his throne, voice shaking as he whispered, "This is a purge, it will erase us." But the Elder shook his head, his old eyes filled with grief. "No, it is worse. It will correct us." No one understood what correct meant until the consoles began to flash rapidly, each screen showing the same horrifying calculations. Population estimates, military expansion, conquest histories, species wiped, planets stripped bare, treaties broken, civilians enslaved. The human ship was not preparing to destroy them. It was measuring what the Empire had taken from the galaxy. And the numbers were unforgiving. On Imperial ships, officers collapsed to the ground. Hands over their faces, watching devastation they had caused centuries ago. Devastation they never thought would return to haunt them. Some whispered apologies. Some whispered prayers. Some simply cried. But none of it mattered. The human ship was not listening with ears. It was listening with judgment. Suddenly, the runes on the human vessel flashed white, and the entire Imperial fleet was swallowed by a soft wave of shifting gravity. Lights bent. Panels cracked. Every ship groaned like metal crying. Ralix felt his knees buckle as he watched the dread in the room rise to unbearable heights. The human ship released another pulse, not destructive, not even violent, but a pulse that went through metal, through systems, through flesh, through memory. Soldiers gasped as visions flashed before them. Visions of human colonies burning under Imperial attacks centuries earlier, settlers begging for mercy, their messages ignored. The Empire had rewritten history books to hide these acts, but the human ship remembered. It remembered everything. Ralix felt tears slip down his cheeks, not understanding whether they belonged to him or if the ship was forcing everyone to feel what humanity felt that day. Betrayal, loss, heartbreak so deep it turned into silence. Across the Imperial fleet, alarms flickered to life, but not because of damage, because the human ship was opening something inside itself. A circular gate on its underside, massive, ancient, terrifying, began to rotate slowly, revealing a swirling core of blue-white energy that looked like a star trapped inside a cage. Scientists screamed into their microphones, their voices breaking. "That's not a weapon. That's a dimensional breach. Turn it off. Turn it off." But the breach grew larger, expanding outward like a sun being born inside the battlefield. The Elder trembled violently. This is the purging light, the oldest Terran failsafe. It removes empires, not people. It targets systems, not souls. Ralix gripped the console. What does that mean? What does it do? The Elder answered with a quiet, broken voice. It erases power. It erases control. It erases the ability to conquer. And as if responding to his explanation, the purging light expanded suddenly, bathing the entire Imperial fleet in a wave of shimmering energy. Not one ship exploded. Not one ship burned. Not one ship crumbled. Instead, something even more terrifying happened. Every Imperial engine, every weapon, every shield core, every warp drive, every command system disintegrated from the inside, melting into harmless dust that fell gently through the decks like flakes of silver snow. Officers screamed as their ships lost all military capability in seconds. Warships became hollow shells. Carriers became floating tombs of metal. The Empire's greatest weapons became children's toys. The High Emperor let out a sound that was not human, not imperial, just the cry of a defeated creature facing the truth of its own insignificance. Our power, it's gone, all gone. The Elder nodded slowly. The ship has chosen mercy. It spared your lives, but it took away your ability to hurt others. The purging light dimmed, but the human ship did not turn away. It hovered, watching, waiting, judging. And Ralix understood the cruel, beautiful truth. The Empire was no longer feared. The Empire was no longer powerful. The Empire was no longer dangerous. But humanity was something else entirely. Something the galaxy should have never forgotten. Something that now stood in front of them like a silent storm waiting for their next choice. And as the light faded completely, the runes on the human ship glowed once more, writing a new message across every screen in the Empire. Balance is not revenge. Balance is correction. The moment the purging light faded and the Imperial fleet was left drifting as powerless metal skeletons, a deep, hollow quiet settled across the galaxy, spreading from ship to ship, world to world, heart to trembling heart, as every living being realized they had just witnessed something no empire, no king, no warlord had ever seen. Mercy from a force powerful enough to erase them without a second thought. The human ship hovered calmly in the middle of the silent battlefield, its glowing runes dimming to a soft gold, as if exhaling after carrying the weight of ancient judgment. But even in that peaceful glow the Empire felt fear crawling under their skin, because the ship's mercy did not feel like kindness, it felt like a warning. On the ruined bridge of the Imperial flagship Vanguard Eternal, Admiral Solrix knelt among broken panels and falling dust, staring blankly at his useless controls, unable to understand how everything he had built, everything he had commanded, everything he believed was permanent had vanished in a matter of seconds. He looked at his trembling hands and whispered, "We are nothing to them, nothing." Across the fleet, officers sat in silence, some crying, some shaking, some whispering apologies to ghosts they never knew existed, because the purging light had shown them not only judgment, but truth. It showed them every world they stole, every species they silenced, every colony they crushed to maintain power. And now that their weapons were gone, their power gone, their pride shattered, they finally saw themselves the way the ship did, not rulers of the galaxy, but children who had grown drunk on violence. Ralix watched from the archive moon as the human vessel slowly rotated, scanning the helpless Imperial ships with faint beams of soft white light, not harming them, not disabling them further, just observing, as if deciding whether they deserved a second chance or if the purging light needed to return. The elder trembled beside him, clutching his cane so tightly his bones creaked. "It is not finished," he whispered, voice shaking. "The ship gave mercy, yes, but mercy is only given when a lesson must be understood. If we fail to learn it, it will return with final judgment." The Emperor collapsed into his throne, eyes wide, whispering like a broken man. What does it want from us?" The elder turned toward him, sorrow heavy in his face. "Humans may be gone, but their machines were built with their values. They do not want war. They want balance. They want justice. They want us to stop becoming the monsters we used to hunt." As he spoke, every screen across the Imperial network suddenly crackled with static, then flashed with a single symbol, a human handprint glowing in gold. Then a voice echoed, not loud, not mechanical, but calm, old, almost human. "Balance has been enforced. But your choices now define your fate." The Empire gasped as the voice continued, "Protocol vigil will remain. Watching. Waiting. If the Empire chooses war again, judgment will return." The message ended, but the echo lingered in every soul like thunder trapped inside a heart. Suddenly, the human ship shifted, turning away from the Imperial fleet for the first time since entering their territory. Its runes flickered softly, then began returning to their original blue glow, as if it were powering down, not in weakness, but in calm certainty. With a slow, graceful movement, the ship angled itself toward the darkest part of space, the uncharted regions where no maps existed, and without a single burst of sound, it began to move away. Not retreating. Not escaping. Just leaving, as if the Empire no longer mattered enough to watch closely. Ralix pressed a hand against the monitor, tears blurring his vision. "It's leaving us," he whispered. The elder nodded. "Because it believes we will fear enough to change." But on several Imperial worlds, angry voices were already rising. Military leaders demanding retaliation. Politicians screaming that the Empire must rebuild, must strike back, must reclaim their pride. The elder felt his heart break. "They still do not understand," he whispered. "It did not take our fleets, it took our arrogance." And in that fragile moment, when the galaxy stood at a crossroads, the human ship paused mid-flight. Slowly, terrifyingly, it turned its hull halfway back toward the Empire, the runes along its spine glowing with a soft red light, the color of warning. Everyone froze. Every voice went silent. Every rebellion died in a throat. And across every Imperial screen, a final message appeared, soft but sharp as a blade: "Do not repeat your mistake." The message faded. The glow dimmed. The ship turned away once more. And then, with a quiet shimmer, the vessel jumped into a fold of space so deep and silent it felt like watching a god disappear. The Empire exhaled at last, broken, humbled, naked before the truth that had shaken every star as the human ship vanished into that silent fold of darkness, leaving the Imperial fleet drifting like broken statues of a forgotten age. A deep and painful stillness swallowed the galaxy. A stillness so heavy that every world under Imperial rule felt it settle on their shoulders like a cold hand reminding them that nothing, no power, no empire, no throne, was ever truly unbreakable. On the crippled flagship Vanguard Eternal, Admiral Solrix stared into the empty void where the ship had disappeared, his eyes hollow, his voice lost, because in that one moment he realized that he had spent his entire life building fleets and conquering systems. But all of it meant nothing in front of something humanity had created centuries ago and abandoned without ever needing to boast about it. He whispered to himself, "They didn't come for glory. They came because we forced their hand," but the words tasted like sorrow. Across the powerless Imperial fleet, soldiers sat among the quiet hum of dead engines, some crying, some shaking, some whispering prayers to gods they never believed in before, because the purging light had not touched their bodies. Only their pride, only their illusions, only the false belief that strength came from weapons instead of wisdom. On the archive moon, Ralix stepped away from the console, his legs weak, his breath uneven, his heart carrying a new weight he didn't know how to handle. He looked up at the ceiling of the Great Record Hall, where images of ancient battles were carved into stone. Imperial victories, Imperial heroes, Imperial lies, and for the first time he understood that the archive had never told the full truth. The elder walked beside him, leaning heavily on his cane, his voice soft and tired. "We have been children pretending to rule the stars," he said, "and today, the stars reminded us that humans were the adults all along." Ralix swallowed hard. "What happens now?" The elder looked toward the void, his eyes filled with fear and hope. "Now, the Empire must decide if it will change. Because the Guardians are still watching. And they always return when the galaxy loses its balance." In the Imperial capital, riots broke out in the streets as terrified citizens demanded answers, while others fell to their knees in worship, believing the human ship was some kind of divine punishment. Politicians screamed at each other in panic, generals threw down their medals, and entire ministries collapsed under the truth they could no longer hide. The Empire was powerless. Its fleets were gone. Its weapons were dust. Its fear-driven rule was broken. And its greatest threat was not an alien enemy, but the judgment of a silent Terran sentinel waiting beyond the edge of the map. Meanwhile, deep inside the Emperor's private chamber, the High Emperor sat alone on the floor, crown discarded beside him, his hands covering his face as he whispered the same trembling sentence over and over. "We should have left humanity alone, we should have never touched them." His tears fell onto the marble floor, mixing with dust from shattered artifacts, each drop a reminder that no empire lasts forever, not when built on arrogance. Outside, a storm of uncertainty swept across the galaxy as countless species who once feared the Empire now stood in cautious silence, wondering whether humanity would someday return, not with machines, not with judgment, but in person. And far away, in the uncharted dark where no star shone bright enough to guide travelers, the human ship hovered inside a peaceful nebula, its hull dim, its runes quiet, as if resting from the burden of its ancient duty. Inside its memory core, a single line of Terran protocol glowed softly, "Stand by until required." It waited, silent as a grave, patient as time, carrying humanity's last will like a flame in the darkness. Back on the archive moon, Ralix stepped outside the great tower and looked at the night sky, the stars shining softly like distant eyes watching him. He felt small, frightened, but strangely hopeful. "Maybe this is our chance," he whispered to himself, "our chance to be better than we were before." The elder placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "If we learn from this, the Guardian will never return." "And if we don't?" Ralix asked softly. The elder looked at the sky, his voice a trembling whisper. "Then the next time it returns, it will not give mercy." The wind blew across the archive moon, carrying with it the ghost of a message the galaxy would never forget. Humanity may have gone silent, but their shadows, their warnings, their guardians still shaped the stars. And from that day forward, every empire, every kingdom, every species lived with the same truth etched into their hearts like a scar from a blade they could not see. The humans were not missing from the records. The humans had erased themselves on purpose. And they could return whenever the galaxy dared to cross the line again.